So, the Yu-Gi-Oh anime. One way or another, we all have been introduced into the trading card game of Yu-Gi-Oh! By some means necessary, and for a lot of us it was especially the anime. Now, as I got older, I kinda steered away from the anime for the most part, with a few exceptions being Arc V and... However, I wanted to go back to some of my favourite ones and actually review all of the main canon duels from each one of the series. And yes, you heard that right. I'm going to be reviewing every single duel from each one of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Animes. Well, the ones I actually feel like, to be quite frankly honest. And yes, you did hear me right, I said canon ones, so I'm not going to be including any filler arcs. Why am I doing this? No idea! But hey ho, let's just get started anyways. Now, to be clear, I'm only going to be using duels from the anime that have been concluded from beginning to end. So if a duel has started from the beginning, and we were capable of seeing all the way through to the bitter end of a duel, then yes, it will be included in this review. However, if we see a duel happening at the beginning, but all of a sudden cuts off at the end, or it just doesn't have a conclusive victor, then no, it won't be included. So for instance, Yugi vs. Ben and Keith won't be on the list since the duel ended abruptly. Yugi vs. Kaiba. Okay, to be fair, I won't be too harsh on some of these earlier duels, mainly because the card game was still in its infancy on its rebirth, but to be quite frankly fair, the main point of this duel was to show off the monsters, and it showed them off pretty well, even though only 2 spell cards were activated during the entire duel. 5 out of 10. Yugi vs. Pegasus. The first time we get to see the Shadow games in play, especially with Pegasus' aspect, and to be quite frankly honest, I would say that this duel is actually quite enjoyable, if it wasn't for the early botchery of the rules we would know later on. 4 out of 10. Yugi vs. Weevil. An early attempt of rock, paper, scissors, plus at the same time traps were mainly used as a mainstay in this duel as well. However, the rules were royally butchered in this one. 3 out of 10. Joy vs. Mai. Rules were booted right out of the door for this one. Although, to be quite frankly fair, Joey's motivation is actually fairly touching, so I will give it credit for that. 5 out of 10. Yugi vs. Mako. I really wanted to give this duel some credit for having a mono-a-mono type of game between Mako and, of course, Atem. However, I really can't ignore the elephant in the room. Giant Soldier of Stone attacked the Bloody Moon. 4 out of 10. Yugi vs. Fake Seto. White Dragons, face off! With a hint of hacking wars. Nice. I like it. I don't see the controversy behind it though. 6 out of 10. Joey vs. Rex. Dinos and dragons with early artifact mechanics. Also, how can Red Eyes attack 2 monsters at once? 5 out of 10. Atem vs. Bakura. A more creative game of darkness. Very interesting and creepy with how everything plays out. The only rule being broken though was a change of heart rule, but hey ho, what can you do? 7 out of 10. Yugi vs. Panic. Guy plays with fire is a guy who uses darkness. Oh, and a flotation ring. 3 out of 10. Joy vs. Kaiba. A short duel with power differences with its fair share of bullshit. Although it was cool seeing Red Eyes and Blue Eyes share the same field at the same time though. 5 out of 10. Joy vs. Bones. Now you'd think with early game mechanics, with how the zombie mechanics worked in the show, it would actually make sense considering on how a zombie is pop culturized. However, even if that's the case, there's only so much bullshit that I can embrace with this duel. 1 out of 10. Yugi and Joey vs. the Paradox Brothers. A D&D style of duel, and it's surprisingly enjoyable. Especially knowing that Kazuka Takahashi is actually a fan of tabletop RPGs like Dungeons & Dragons. This one looks like it feels right at home. 8 out of 10. Yugi vs. Kaiba 2. And I thought the zombie bullshit was unembraceable. 1 out of 10. Taya vs. Mai. Apparently spells are traps now for some odd reason. The duel is kinda bland. 3 out of 10. Kaiba vs. Pegasus. Nice strategy, Kaiba, in trying to change your ways on how to adapt to fighting Pegasus. Although top decking can only get you so far. 7 out of 10. Yugi vs. Mai. Not a fan of these kind of, well, battles in anime as a whole, but it might please some people. 5 out of 10. Joey vs. Band and Key. Vengeance versus love. Good versus evil. Cheating versus anime bullshit. Yeah, I love this duel. 8 out of 10. Yugi vs. Joey. Who can make the most big brain plays? 7 out of 10. Yugi vs Pegasus. A duel of contrasts. Two minds of Yugi and two sides of Pegasus. The young Yugi and of course the Pharaoh, as well as the wacky toon side of Pegasus with the very dark and relinquished side of Pegasus. Why is it 4 episodes long? 6 out of 10. Yugi vs Rebecca. Loved the concept behind this duel, and I actually did enjoy the final message at the end. 8 out of 10. Joy vs Duke. Duke is like Orihime. He shows up with some power to do one thing for 1 or 2 episodes, then for the rest of the series he does literally nothing. But you want to know the sad part? Orihime actually does more, and actually does a whole lot more better for her friends in Bleach than Duke ever did in his friends in Yu-Gi-Oh! How could you be this much more worse than Orihime? 1 out of 10. Yugi vs Duke. Talking about beating a guy at his own game, hot damn. 5 out of 10. Kaiba vs CPU. This is the reason why Obelisk sees more competitive play. 7 out of 10. Joy vs a Rare Hunter. And this is the reason why everyone hates fighting against Exodia. Oh, and the anti-rule is in place. 3 out of 10. Yugi vs Rare Hunter. This is the reason why running 3 of each Exodia piece is a bad idea. Oh, must I forget the activation of Life Force Sword from the hand? 6 out of 10. Joy vs Esperoba. So we have cheating versus games of chance. Why not? 4 out of 10. Yugi vs Arcana. A magician death match. It's awesome, it's brutal, and a few BS things happened in it, but not enough to actually rob the duel of its quality. Although I do recommend watching the subbed version for more intenseness. 7 out of 10. Joy vs Weevil. I forgot almost everything about this duel. 2 out of 10. Yugi vs Marek. Okay, I know this guy is called Strings, but I didn't know that when I was writing down these notes, alright? A duel against the Egyptian god Slifer is both intense and a bit boring. 5 out of 10. Yugi and Kaiba vs Loomis and Umbra, number 1. I think this is the first FTK of the show. No wonder why I almost forgot about it. 5 out of 10. Joy vs Mako. Finally, a mano-a-mano match with Mako. And in all honesty, this one's actually pretty damn good. 8 out of 10. Yugi and Kaiba vs Loomis and Umbra, number 2. A high-stakes duel with Kaiba pulling some next-level big brain plays to get the advantage. 9 out of 10. Yugi vs Joey. A game of death-defying odds, but that ending is slathered with an asinine amount of bullshit. 7 out of 10. Bakura vs Bones. Have to be fair, even with old cards, the dark games are an atmospherical joy to witness and behold. 9 out of 10. Mai vs Jean. Whatever. How do I describe this one? Let me see. Oh yeah, 2 guys up.
So trusted you. I thought I could too.
I'm sorry, alright, let me just cut to the chase. 6 out of 10. Yugi vs Bakura. I literally have a bit of a soft spot for both this duel and the deck that Bakura uses. It's haunting, foreboding, and reminds me a little bit of the Eclipse from Berserk in a weird way. Note to self, watch Berserk. 8 out of 10. Joey vs Odeon. Trap Monsters debut, and we see why Egyptian-themed cards are often given a massive shaft. Also why I ended the duel in a stupid way. 4 out of 10. Mai vs Marek. First duel with the dark side of Marek, and he throws all the fucking punches. 8 out of 10. Kaiba vs Ishizu. Kaiba decides his own fate, Ishizu. 7 out of 10. Marek vs Bakura. This is what happens when occult ceremonies go horribly, horribly wrong. Also, a one-turn kill makes its debut. 6 out of 10. Hang on a sec, where did this art come from? Yugi vs Gansley. This is why deck monsters aren't a mechanic, and in some cases, I'm glad. 4 out of 10. Taya vs Crumb. A surprisingly straightforward duel with these two, believe it or not. With a bit of a what the fuck kind of scenario at the end. But be warned if you're going to watch the sub version though, because Crumb is an actual creep. I'm sorry, what? Dude, what the fuck? Excuse me, what? Oh dear.
FBI, open up!
No, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it, please, no! 6 out of 10. Joy vs Johnson. It's so bad that I have far too many profound ways of actually describing on how bad it is. 1 out of 10. Tristan, Duke, and Serenity vs Nesbit. Honestly, Nesbit's military knowledge actually makes him a very intimidating opponent to square up against. And seeing that somebody in the main cast actually loses is honestly something surprising. Great duel overall though. 9 out of 10. Seto vs Lecter. Not gonna lie, but this duel was a lot better than I remembered. Wouldn't mind building a goat deck around Lecter's deck too as well, to be honest. 9 out of 10. Yugi and Joey vs a Big 5. This was a decent duel. Long, but decent. The last few turns had something enjoyable though. 7 out of 10. Seto and Yugi versus Noah. Why didn't the duel end when last battle was played? This is one of the worst villain duels ever. 1 out of 10. Seto versus Gozoboro. Great concept, dull execution. 6 out of 10. Yugi versus Kaiba versus Joey versus Marek. It's fine, I guess. 5 out of 10. Joey versus Marek. This duel was damn right torture in every way. 8 out of 10. Yugi versus Seto. Battle of the Gods mixed with an effective rival battle. Nice. 8 out of 10. Joey versus a Dream Kid. This duel was both bad and pointless. 3 out of 10. Seto versus Joey. A better match of these two, but I have to agree with Kaiba that the gamble deck of Joey's does suck. 7 out of 10. Yugi versus Marek. Hot damn, that's one way to end a duel. Also, this duel was surprisingly enjoyable in comparison to the Pegasus duel. 9 out of 10. Okay, so I'm going to be skipping over the other filler arcs because I'm going to be here all day at this rate. Plus, the last one actually felt like it belonged in the actual storyline. But hey ho, let's see how much duels I have to go through in order to finish this video. Wait, there's only 2 left? Oh, well, awesome. Let's actually go right through them. Yugi versus Bakura. Little Yugi shows us how he fares in a duel, and it wasn't half bad. 6 out of 10. Yugi vs. Atem. Talk about a way of ending in style. Definitely a way of ending the first series off with style. 10 out of 10. This video was actually a lot more simpler to make despite the fact on how complicated it sounded. Am I a mad lad? Nah, the one guy who actually reviewed every Simpsons episode is more of a mad lad than I am. Anyways, that's it for me. But until next time, if you want to see more stuff like this, subscribe, like, and until next time, I bid you all adieu.